What's up all, it's Kurt here. I started investing in real estate back in 2020, and now in 2023 I own 27 units of rental real estate and get to enjoy that sweet financial independence living off of cash flow, making way more than I ever made as an engineer. A lot of people ask, Kurt, how did you scale like that? What's the secret sauce? Well, there isn't really any secret sauce. It's just getting a lot of the fundamentals right, and this video covers one of those fundamentals, and that's forcing equity into your deals. I made a previous video, linked below in the description, that talks about how forcing equity can help you to scale a portfolio faster. I strongly encourage you, if you haven't seen that video already, to pause this now, watch that other one, and then come back to this video. This is more of like a practitioner's guide of how to actually get it done, using techniques that I've personally used, and I'll mention a couple others that I'm aware of but haven't personally tried yet. So this is more nuts and bolts, how to actually force equity into your deal, and not the higher level overview of why doing so is a good thing or productive for your future financial independence. Now that you understand the importance of sweat equity, how it grows your net worth, and how you can leverage it to grow your portfolio, let's get into some specific tactics that you can use to achieve it. The methods will fall under two different categories depending on the type of property. 1 to 4 unit residential properties are valued based on sales comparables, 5+ unit properties are considered commercial, and commercial properties are valued based on their net operating income and their cap rate. I have a whole video on NOI that discusses cap rate as well. Check it out if these are foreign concepts. The link's in the description. Equity is forced in 1 to 4 unit residential by physically improving your property to be more like the higher price comps in your market. Equity is forced in 5+ unit properties either by making physical improvements to the property or by increasing the net operating income. Oftentimes, the two go hand in hand. Improvements make your property more desirable, which can have the effect of lowering the cap rate. Improvements also help your property rent for more, increasing the income. 1 to 4 unit properties oftentimes are owner-occupied, and income potential generally is not front of mind for owner-occupants. Rather, they care about how nice the kitchen is, how many bedrooms there are, the school district, the cool backyard, and so on. 5+ unit properties are typically bought by investors, like us, seeking to make a return, so NOI directly influences the value, NOI being net operating income. I'll cover tactics for forcing equity in both asset classes, but I'll start with the 1 to 4 unit residential because that's where most investors start. Cosmetic improvements tend to offer the highest ROI on these types of properties. Cosmetic improvements include things like paint, flooring, light fixtures, cabinets, faucets, and so on. These are the things that everybody notices regardless of their level of sophistication. These improvements are relatively affordable and DIY friendly if you don't go overboard with extravagant finishes, and in most markets, you shouldn't. Just making a place light, clean, neutral is about all it takes to force equity into a dated and dingy property. Specific material choices should depend on your market, and you can judge how far you want to go with improvements by assessing comps with values that you would like to replicate. This may seem counterintuitive, but new electrical, plumbing, HVAC, windows, roof, and so on don't add as much value to a property as you may think. This is because all of the higher end comps will already be adequate on all of those fronts. The appraiser is mostly concerned with the binary proposition of whether or not the systems perform as intended. This means that your house with a brand new furnace may appraise for the same price as an otherwise identical house with a 10-year-old furnace, because both houses have working furnaces, and appraisers don't have a mechanism for adjusting for the remaining service life of these appliances and so on. At least not that I've seen. The exception is if a house is fully remodeled with all new everything. It'll be assigned a higher quality standard than something that doesn't meet that bar. The lesson here is to try to buy houses where the infrastructure is in acceptable condition, because you're probably not going to see much return from replacing it. A house with solid infrastructure that just requires cosmetic improvements is a good option for a beginner investor because the cosmetic upgrades that need doing tend to offer a high ROI while being less intimidating to a newbie than a rehab with a greater scope of work. You're also less likely to run into permitting issues if you stick with cosmetic work. These deals are great when you can find them, but they are in high demand for the reasons that I've just stated. You'll need to make sure that the fixer-upper that you come across has enough meat on the bone for you to buy it, fix it for sufficiently less than the after repair value. And guess what? I did a video on after repair value as well. My first couple of deals were basically that, but I quickly got into larger rehabs as I gained confidence and built relationships with trustworthy contractors. Big to-the-studs rehabs with all new everything can make sense if you buy a place for cheap enough. The big rehab deals tend to be juicier because they present a higher barrier to entry by being less beginner friendly. They take longer to turn around, aren't eligible for traditional financing, require more capital, and that's more opportunity for things to go wrong. I got into these quickly for the higher returns, and I'm also pretty comfortable with tearing things apart and putting them back together in a superior way. I had done it a bunch with cars, so why not buildings? The next step beyond fixing or upgrading what's already there is to alter the property in a manner that allows it to be compared to dissimilar, higher value comps. What do I mean by dissimilar? Places with more bedrooms, more bathrooms, more square footage, and so on. You have a small house in a hot market? Maybe adding a second story is a good investment, because in doing so, the appraiser will compare your house to houses with twice the square footage from what you started out with. Obviously worth a lot more. The textbook example of this is to add a third bedroom to a two-bedroom house that has sufficient square footage to accommodate that third bedroom. Cool, now your house isn't being compared to other two-bedroom houses, it's being compared to three-bedroom houses. Let's say you're investing in a market where three-bedroom houses cost $30,000 more than two-bedroom houses. You pay a contractor $5,000 to throw up a wall and build a closet, converting your two-bedroom house into a three-bedroom house. You just traded $5,000 for $30,000 because you recognized an opportunity and you seized it. Comparatively, how many hours of overtime would it take you to make that same $25,000 at your job? Work smarter, not harder. That's the residential. Now the commercial. Commercial properties are valued on cap rate and net operating income. Again, watch my video on NOI if these are foreign concepts. But in short, cap rate is the annual unleveraged percent yield of a property. Properties with high cap rates produce a lot of cash flow relative to what they cost. Properties with low cap rates produce little cash flow relative to what they cost. The cap rate is determined by the quality of the location, the property, the tenant, and the lease terms, and so on. People pay a premium for desirable, lower-risk assets. So, a Starbucks in Silicon Valley with a 20-year lease will have a much lower cap rate than a rundown apartment building in a war zone. You can try to deduce the cap rate by looking at what similar properties sold for in the same area. Local agents, brokers, or other investors and such could offer some valuable insights. Generally, you'll see that nicer properties have lower cap rates, and fixing up a property to have a lower cap rate is a possibility to force equity. The other way is just to make the property make more money. Have tenants that aren't paying? Replace them with ones you pay. Are your units rented out at a discount? Or put another way, rented for below market value? Raise the rents. Are your units all outdated? Update them so people will be willing to pay more for them. Do competing facilities have more amenities, like on-site laundry, dishwashers, air conditioners, and such? Consider adding those. You can also generate income from laundry facilities, paid parking or storage, vending machines, and so on. These can all raise your NOI, and I've taken advantage of all of them except the vending machines, and I'll probably add them too once I level up to bigger properties that can support a dedicated staff to keep them stocked. Adding units can also add value to a commercial property. As an example, I recently bought a building that was advertised as having 7 units. Now I'm running it as a 10-unit building. They were using a full, newly updated studio apartment as a management office. A building that small does not need on-site management, so I moved the office furniture out and moved a tenant in. That one simple move adds around $100,000 of value if the building is treated as an 8 cap. There were also 2 office units in the basement with half baths. One had a kitchenette, and the other was partially plumbed for one. I threw up walls for bedrooms, added showers and bathrooms, and all that fun stuff. 2 more 2-bedroom units that rent for $1,200 a month each. That's around $300,000 of value at an 8 cap. In practice, I'm not sure that this building will appraise at an 8 cap, but either way, I forced a ton of equity with some relatively simple changes. Now that I've gone on about ways to add income, maybe you're wondering about the other side of the coin, reducing expenses. Yes, reducing expenses is an equally valid way of increasing the value of a property. Just be careful not to sacrifice quality. Some operators will skimp on maintenance prior to the sale to lower expenses and lead to a higher NOI and a higher valuation. This isn't sustainable, and savvy buyers know to look out for it. Making that a habit, slashing upkeep, and milking the place for all that it has, is a good way to run a perfectly good property into the ground. Good ways to decrease expenses don't work to the detriment of the building itself or your residents' quality of life. Some examples of these are switching over to LED lighting. Use photo cells outdoors so you're not running the lights during the day. Use occupancy sensors indoors so that you're not lighting empty spaces. I keep my stairwells lit full time for safety, and one light per hallway stays lit. The other hallway lights and laundry room lights only come on when people are around to activate them. Water-saving toilets, efficient shower heads, faucet aerators, and so on are all ways to drop your utility costs. If you're paying for heat, having good insulation and windows could also be a solid value add. I can't talk that much about utilities without mentioning submetering so that tenants pay their own utilities, or RUB systems, which bill the tenants back for utilities based on a formula. Basically, if you have a bill like water, you can assume that usage is dependent on the number of occupants showering, flushing toilets, and so on, so you can take the total utility bill and multiply it by the number of people in a given unit, divided by the total number of people in the building. That's the share of the bill that gets billed to that unit. Heat is more based on square footage, so for that, any given unit gets billed on the total heat bill times the square footage of the unit divided by the total square footage of the building. I haven't personally implemented a RUB system because it seems like it could cause conflict between tenants if one felt like they were getting shafted due to the alleged excessive consumption of another, although I've never tried this to confirm. Instead, I just pay common utilities into the rent when applicable, and I favor submetered properties so that everybody is paying for what they use and no more. So that's the gist of it, how you force equity into both residential and commercial properties. Hopefully you got value out of this. If you did, don't you dare like and subscribe or share this with your friends or anything like that. Because look at how nice of a setup I have and how few people actually view these videos. It must be really, really bad content to justify that dichotomy there. So yeah, you don't share this, whatever you do. But otherwise, have a great day, and good luck with your endeavors.